We're going to start with a quote from today's guest. The type of people that are attracted to golf are these type A overthinkers doing accounting on things that just don't matter. Even though today's guest didn't know who I was before today, that seemed deeply personal and targeted towards me. So we're going to dive into this. Let's do this. In Let Us Heads, we are back with another edition of Please Let Us Golf, the podcast. Today you got Goldy flying solo, but I'm going to be bringing on a very special guest in just a moment. With our guests, we've been able to deep dive a lot of topics from all corners of the world of golf. But one area I've been dying to get into deeply with a true expert is the world of like where data golf meets golf course management, course strategy, whatever you want to call it. And boy, do we have an expert in that area today. If you've been following the pod the last year, you've probably heard me mention multiple times. I'm an analyst by education, by trade. I'm a deep appreciator of the sciences. My alter ego, Professor Goldy, earlier this year, developed and delivered a mathematical formula to solve gimmies. Started as a bit, turned into the law of the gimme. Actually, an equation ending the debate of when is a gimme acceptable. So with all that being said, you've probably also heard us take some issue with the applications of data golf and more so like what analytics may be doing and impacting to professional sports in general, but especially to the world of golf. So to help us unpack this today, we're bringing on someone you may have debated with at this point at your keyboard or into your phone. I know I certainly have. He certainly isn't afraid to elicit a response. He's the founder and developer of Decade Golf, the number one course management system in the world, currently employed by many of the top professionals and amateur golfers in the game today. And without further ado, I got about 1,500 questions and we got limited time. So I'm ready to dive head first with them. So let us heads, please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Scott Fawcett. Scott, how are we doing today?
It says in the Let Us Golf. I didn't realize that until I saw the logo. That's pretty creative. I like it.
Thank you. So it's some people catch on to that really quick, but for our branding, we've gone all in. It's let us everything, and it's working. And
Cool.
first they called us silly, and now everyone's asking for let us logos and let us this, the let us head. So it's fun. Hey, by the way, I did see. I don't think I'm doxing anything because you put it on your Instagrams. You're coming off of a birthday recently. Happy birthday! I'm not sure when this will post, but I say that because I'm a fellow July birthday, but I got two little boys that turned 3 and 6 this week. They're both July birthdays and before mine. So dad's July birthday is just totally out the window for me. But us July guys got to stick together.
What happened 9 months ago? Is it apparently a celebration or something in your house?
I think both times, literally, there was because I'm kind of inland Georgia a little bit, but both times I think was like a rogue hurricane, and we just had tropical storm conditions. I literally think that's a true statement, but hopefully my wife's.
I swear to God, this was a couple years ago. I gave my mom something for her birthday, and I was like, "That's your best birthday present ever." And she goes, "No, you are." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I'd never done that. Her birthday's October.
Oh man!
Like, oh my God!
That hits a little too close to home.
Yeah.
So Scott, we talked for a couple seconds before we went live, and I like breaking the fourth wall, bringing people into the mechanics of how and why we do things. People have probably heard you. I mean, I know I've seen you. I recently watched you on a Rick Shields video. I know you're on a couple big pods. So there's only so many ways to, slice the bread on these topics, but I'm going to tee them up a little creatively differently. And I can't wait to dive into these, but if you could, not every listener we have is, some are going to be pretty green in the area of like golf course strategy and then specific to Decade Golf. So if you could level set for us, we'll get into the context piece and then we'll get into the fun stuff of, I do have a quote even for this. Great course management is just making sound decisions and running the script over and over again. So what is Decade Golf? How'd it come to be and who's it for?
I played professional golf in my 20s and did fairly well. Obviously, never made it to the PGA Tour or anything, but I wasn't a guy that was just clueless out there. I won 10 different times, and so it was reasonable. But when I quit in 2002, I started playing a lot of poker. And honestly, like I'm kind of a math guy, I got finance and economics degrees, whatever. And as I started playing poker and thinking of it as a math game, and obviously if you go on tilt, you're just going to waste your money and everything. And I was just a huge hothead and didn't really ever think of golf as a math game. And so over the next 5 years through studying poker really intently, honestly, with Chris Como, Tiger's old instructor, Bryson, and works with Xander now, he and I started really talking about golf as a math game. And I got to where I was playing pretty good in 2008, and entered Q school again as a 35-year-old amateur, made it through all four stages, whatever. But then I started writing when in 2010 is when they first released strokes gained putting. And I wrote a thread in an online poker forum that was just titled "Is Drive for Show, Putt for Dough Really True?" And it's interesting because you can see us, me and the other poker players, trying to work out a few different ideas just based on strokes gained putting. And then in 2013, I didn't know they were doing this, but it was like an excerpt coming out from Mark Brody's book, Every Shot Counts, that they had strokes gained for the four main categories: driving, approach, around the greens, and putting. And I was like, well, if I know how big a shot pattern is from launch monitors, and I know how many strokes it takes to hole out from any given area, I can theoretically solve this, elusive question of course management, because it's just historically, it's like, oh, we got to play a little safer here, this, and it's just all based on really no actual data, just intuition and hunch,
Just
which
that good gut.
percent of the time was wrong anyways. Um, and so I did all this work over the next 6 or 9 months, and luckily for me, Will Zalatoris was just a junior golfer at my home course, and I got a cortisone shot in my right elbow the week before the Texas Amateur, and so I wound up caddying for Will, which it was frustrating because I'm like, the cortisone shot paralyzed my right arm, so I couldn't play. Obviously, it came back to life, yay me. But caddied for Will, who was 3,300 in the world at the time, and he won by 4, and it was just the easiest thing I've ever watched, especially for a kid that had never really been in that position. And then I went down and caddied for him when he won the U.S. Junior, and the SMU coach told me, I don't know what you're doing with him, but it seems like something with strategy. Can you put this into a seminar and teach it to one of my players, this kid named Bryson DeChambeau? He's a world beater, but he doesn't do anything because he's just firing at every single flag. So that's literally, I built the seminar to teach it to Bryson, and then he wins the NCAAs and U.S. Amateur over the next few months, and now it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy of apparently I'm a strategy wizard.
So you're talking about Mark Brody and strokes gained, and then you're trying to solve the game mathematically. Happenstance, you have the injury, you find Will Zalatoris and Bryson DeChambeau, not two bad prospects to go to test it out. But fast forward to now, you some buzzwords in there. I know we're going to tackle in other topics. Shot pattern. Could you dive a little deeper in it, because it seems predicated on shot pattern?
Yeah, if there's one thing that I still find perplexing, obviously I've spent a lot of time arguing with the announcers on golf broadcast, but if there's any one thing I do find perplexing, it's that they act as though where any one shot goes is where they were, air quotes, aiming, intending it to go. Because they're just like, oh, that's a very aggressive play whenever they stuff it to a tucked left pin. And it's like, I would bet my life he was aiming, 8 or 10 yards right of that flag, and it was in the left side of his shot pattern. So a shot pattern is just, if you hit 100 balls on a driving range, you would have a footprint that looks more like a shotgun blast than obviously just a sniper's rifle shooting down the middle. And so what proper course management needs to do is take into account, I use about 85 or 90%. We can't let outliers destroy your averages. So we discount 10 or 15%. It's not like this is just hard, fast math that I could go present at MIT and not get absolutely picked apart in. But we want to discount those biggest outliers. And then we're essentially taking, we won't get too mathy here, but the standard deviations of the rest of the shot pattern, and then just overlaying that with different greens and hazards. And I'm sure with AI and programming now, you could have done it a lot more efficiently than my 500 million cells of Excel that I wrote. It's probably, if I would be embarrassed to show anybody who's actually good with math or writing.
That's the good stuff. No,
how did you do that? Like, I didn't want it to screw up, so I literally just have the Pythagorean theorem out in different cells, so everything is just broken out across. So that way, if anything went wrong, I could pinpoint back to where we needed to start over. But at the end of the day, it was interesting because when I was caddying for Will, I was just doing all this, relatively simple math in my head out there to pick these targets. But then once the SMU coach asked me to, like, can you teach this? Can you systematize it? And I was like, I mean, I guess. And honestly, it's bizarre that I didn't do that beforehand, to be perfectly honest, because there's just a very obvious pattern that emerged with regards to your initial target based on the length of the shot, and then what you needed to modify that for surrounding hazards. And that may not make any sense without going a little deeper into that, but it just gives you a concrete target to aim at. And if there's one thing that I don't feel like I realized, just so much of it, like Stuart Sink said, just so much of it is like, it just gives me a concrete target to aim at that I know is somewhere in the vicinity of correct. Like, my golf intuition is like, yeah, that's pretty much right. And that's what I would say. Decade's going to get you within a yard or two of the mathematically optimal target for any given shot. and then you are allowed able to commit to it much better. If there's any one mistake that I made, and literally every person I've worked with on the PGA Tour makes, it's this idea of I'm aiming 7 or 8 yards right of this flag, and I kind of hope I pull it. So now I'm over the shot. I'm like, well, I'm aiming away from it, but I'd kind of hope I pull it a little bit. And it's like, by definition, this is a difficult shot. That's why we're aiming that far away from it. And
Hmm.
now you're putting a non-committed swing on it. Once you're good at centering your shot pattern over your target on the driving range, you don't have to hope you pull it. You're going to pull it about half the time, like by definition. And so, if there's anything, just clearing up a lot of that, inner dialogue and confusion that we've had historically, it just allows you to play way more committed to your targets at the end of the day.
So with shot patterns, and again, I know a lot of the conversations you have is geared towards the elite amateur and the professional golfer. How does that translate to, like, what could I get out of it? So I float between a scratch and a +2. Is there a decade for dummies version? Because I think one of the
Sure.
common feedbacks I've got talking, I was out with a group of guys yesterday, and they're like, "Yeah, it just seems like an intense amount of work to figure out like what your shot pattern is and what the optimal line is." So, what would your counter be to that criticism?
You don't have to figure out your own shot pattern. I give you different, what I call baseline numbers, which is how far you're aiming from the edge of the green, 4 different levels of handicaps.
Gotcha.
Now, in all honesty, a single digit or better is who I expect to be able to, air quotes, run the entire system or use the entire system.
Hmm.
But if you're shooting in the 80s, again, I just hate this question, but like, I just hate feeling like I'm trying to
No, it's
sell it here.
you could feel, yeah, you could tell me if you hate a question.
Literally
You're
drives
not
me
going to hurt
crazy
my
feeling like I'm
feelings.
selling anything. But the best analogy I've come up with is after I had COVID, I had started having a lot of blood pressure issues. I was a 36 handicap cardiovascular surgeon at the time. I knew nothing. But after 20 different doctor's visits, running every single test, I, as a type A overthinker, do my own blood work every 6 months ish at a minimum, just seeing what's going on, and have for 15 years. So I could tell you, if you came to me and you had high blood pressure, I could tell you what meds you need to be on. Now, would you want me to actually operate on you? Absolutely not. So I'm like a scratch cardiovascular surgeon at this point.
That's
You don't want me touching you with a scalpel. That's what I would say. The 15 handicap, we're trying to get you a tour player's brain inside of you as a 15. That's almost by definition going to make you like an 8. Raymond Floyd's got a great quote in his book where he says, even if you and I had the exact same skills, I would still beat you 99 times out of 100 because I'm going to just outplay the game. And I never would have thought that was actually accurate prior to all of this.
Mhm.
But the amount of, I mean, again, we can just look at our members. The average member over the first 4 months, which that's about how long it takes to kind of get through the content, over the first 4 months, their handicap reduces 30 to 40% against 72. I shouldn't say handicap, average score.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, if you're averaging 80, it's about 4 shots off your game, 3, 4 shots off your game in 4 months, and it's just so simple because you see the game in a different light, and it's, again, as a reformed lunatic, so much about it is now just the mental side of the game. It's obviously, yes, it's a given. We're going to teach you strategy and how to pick targets, but the mental side of actually being able to apply it all, that's the hardest part of anything. I mean, it really is just being committed, patient, disciplined, all the other, key psychology words you can throw out there.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely things that I've struggled with in my own game and playing some competitively younger, and then even just guys you play with now that are, I always view you have professionals, elite amateurs, and then really good club players. So I'm in that kind of class of player, but even with that, you put your own stresses on it. Don't you hit a shot and you're like, why did I know, I knew I shouldn't have done that. It's just constant part of the game.
I
But I
saw a post from the Arizona State coach yesterday,
do.
where he said one thing we try not to hit is anyway shots. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do with this shot, and I just hit it anyways. And that's kind of the same thing that we count in decade with the mental scorecard, where
Mhm.
it's basically, did you know exactly what you're trying to do, and when you pulled the trigger, were you completely committed to it? And it's amazing how much just accomplishing that step helps your scores in your golf game and sanity.
So I do want to get into some of the critical sub components of, we talk putting or shot shaping and driving, all of that. But I do want to throw a decade of bone. Our first guest we had on was JP Burke. He's a caddy on the Corn Ferry Tour. I think he's on his third season. He's on Davis Shore's bag. I think it was the second event this year. Anyways, he finished solo third, but he walked us through. He's a decade user, and he walked us through a play by play of how he used decade at a critical juncture on an approach shot on the 18th hole, back left tuck. On the diagram, it was a no go if you miss left there. His players wanting to aim at the stick. And you see it. We overlaid the video.
That's cool.
Surprised we didn't get flagged from KFT folks or PGA Tour, fine friends. And you see him kind of back him off a little. They pick a target right. He does pull it a little, and it lands a foot from the pin, and everyone's like, "Oh, what an aggressive shot!" But he's like, "Yeah, but that was we were aiming 6 yards right, and he pulled it a little, and I think it was like a 140-yard shot, but it was really cool, step by step application." Right after that story, I was like, "Man, I really got to talk to Scott in detail about a decade golf."
The decade won't ever give you a target that's so far away from the pin that it doesn't have the ability to hit it close. I mean, it's
Right.
if you hit a good shot, like there's a giant elliptical shot pattern, and then there's a smaller, like circular shot pattern in the middle that's like, let's say your 30 or 40 percentile of best shots, they're going to be pretty condensed in this, not in this small area, but in this inner circle. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have quite as much of a tilt, long left and short right for right-handed players. It's definitely more circular because it's a solid shot. It's hit with the spin axis you intended. Like it's just a good shot. The hole is always within that inner circle. And so now you're just looking for a little bit of variance within your shot pattern. Because what I would say on that one is let's just pretend he was aiming 6 yards right of the flag
Mm-hmm.
and he hit it to a foot.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if he hit it 6 yards right of his target, so now he's 12 yards from the flag, he's 36
Mm-hmm.
feet. Like those are the same exact quality shots in relative to his actual target. It's
Mm-hmm.
just this one's a lot more convenient.
Yeah.
So he has a 36-foot putt, and it's basically the exact same shot as hitting it to 1 foot, in my opinion. And that's it's just the unfortunate variance within golf. It's why the best player doesn't win every week. It's why we have three guys in the same generation in tennis, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, that have won everything. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because if I'm better than you at tennis, I'm probably going to beat you until I run into one of those other two.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be one of us three again for the most part.
Yeah,
It's just
no, I get what you're saying. The
yeah. I
dominant.
mean, that's just not how it works in golf. You have, I mean, and again, anyone can randomly. I mean, JJ Spawn, hell of a player, but no one had him. I hate this thing. I almost did it without acknowledging. I hate saying, "Oh, no one had him on their bingo card."
Yeah. Oh
But like,
man, I would have let it slide, I think.
I hate that saying. That's the first time it's ever coming out of my mouth. But
uh,
it's just that's the way golf works, and that's part of the beauty of it, in my opinion. I mean, it's why I hate the elevated events with a small restricted field. Like
hmm.
the biggest component of a competitive leaderboard is size of field, and so now we've just eliminated it down. And all these guys complaining about the live guys taking the money. I'm like, well, you guys earned twice as much over the last few years. Also, going
Yeah.
to give that back?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah, I don't see anybody rushing to give that back, and
no.
that's a whole nother. Yeah, that's one of our pain points and something we've dived pretty deep into. So I want to start with putting. I think a lot of people want to talk about driving the golf ball and shot shaping and all this, but putting is something deeply, deeply personal to me. As a golfer, I do feel like maybe the data wouldn't say this, but mentally playing with enough good players, most good players are pretty good at everything, but they usually have something they're really good. I would say it's like they're kind of mini superpower. I've always been a naturally really good putter. And
I
playing,
hate you.
yeah, sorry, sorry. And maybe if we putted together, you'd be like, "Oh, you're really not that good." At least I think relative, but it's odd because I think people view putting through like making putts and birdieing a bunch of holes. Whereas I've always viewed it as like I play a lot of tournaments, and I can't tell you the last time I've three putted in a tournament. And it was before I've even come across some of your quotes. I was the king of leaving putts a foot short, and people telling you, you never made a putt that didn't get to the hole. And, even if you're playing in a 2-man scramble, oh, I don't want you to putt second because, you're a die putter or whatever it might be. So you do have this, your quote that I've seen gone viral a couple times is that if you don't leave any putts short, you suck at putting. And I saw recently you did a reel of that drill that JT was doing with, alignment stick or a club a few feet behind the hole and get it between the hole and the stick past the hole. And people have asked me all the time, what putting drills do you do? And I've said for years, like, I hate that one. Because tons of great players I play with, they're just hammering the putt 5 feet past, and they three putt, I don't know, whatever, one out of every two or three of those, and they lose their minds, and I'm just casually tapping them in. So I want to talk a little bit about decade or your philosophy on why is that? Why is everyone so misguided when it comes to putting?
Well, if you just go out tomorrow and throw a ball mark down 20 feet away and just take 10, 15 balls and try to lag it as close to the ball mark as you can and go down after each putt and just kind of like move it offline. I want you to try to recreate your shot pattern just off to the side. And the reason we're moving the putt is so the next putt doesn't hit the prior ball.
Right.
Your shot pattern, I don't care how good or bad you are at golf, your shot pattern on putting will be from 20 feet at least 3 to 6 times deeper in speed control than wide in directional control. Everyone's speed is just significantly worse than their line control. And again, that doesn't matter if you're a 20 handicap or a +9. I mean, it literally doesn't matter. And so if you start thinking about a putt with any break on it whatsoever, people always like, I'd rather have a straight up. Well, you don't know the putt was straight until after you hit it, first of all. So it's really difficult to commit to a straight 8-foot putt. But once you have a putt with any break on it, the ones that you hit too soft start breaking sooner. The ones that you hit too hard start breaking later. So even given the identical read and start line, your shot pattern starts to become wider, which just means the hole is going to get in the way of fewer putts. It's just your speed. Even it's just hard for people to wrap their heads around this. Your speed is going to dictate your line, your ultimate line, more than even your start line. Which people are always like, what if you start at 90 degrees offline? I'm like, I'm assuming you're trying. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You're
assuming
trying
you're
to make the
trying.
putt.
If you're trying to make the putt and not just be an asshole, sorry if you don't cuss on this.
Oh no, you say whatever you want. We let it rip.
I mean, as long as you're actually attempting to do the drill correctly and reasonably, you're going to have worse speed control. And so I agree with the Dave Pell's 17 inches past the hole. I honestly think that's probably a little bit much, maybe 9 or 10 inches.
Mm-hmm.
If you could control your speed to the inch, then yes, you should just barely get it past the hole every single time, make the hole as big as physically possible. But you can't control your speed to the inch. And so we've got this distribution from long to short. And from 20 feet on the course, it's going to be at least 4, if not 5 feet for a PGA Tour player. So now from 16 to 20 feet, if I've got a 4-foot deep shot pattern and I don't leave any short, I will have 4-footers coming back. I will miss some of those. I mean, just the make rate is 88% on the tour. So I will 3-putt some from even just 18 feet. But also I've centered, if you just think of it as a normal distribution curve, I've now centered the inner 50% of my shot pattern nearly 2 feet past the hole. I've made the hole incredibly small for the vast majority of my putts. Now, if I take that same shot pattern depth and I leave 20-ish% short, and this depends on the player, but I leave 20-ish% short, yeah, the ones that came up a foot short didn't have a chance of going in. But realistically, the ones that went 3 to 4 feet by, unless it hit the dead center of the cup, they weren't going in either.
Right.
So now I've basically traded out those 3 to 4 foot comebackers for 0 to 1 foot tap ins. And I've also centered the vast majority of my putts barely past the hole, making the hole as big as physically possible. It's hard for people to wrap their head around, but from 16 to 20 feet, leaving 20% of your putts short will optimize your make rate and your 3-putt rate. And in golf, we're technically trying to optimize our strokes to hole out rate. If there's any one thing I think Pels did get wrong, and even everybody that was doing their flag in or flag out, what are the make rates? They were just all optimizing for make rates. That's not what we do in golf. We want if the pins, I don't care at all if the pin stops a putt, makes a putt go in that would not have gone in. I want the pin to be stopping the putt that would have gone 4 or 5 feet past the hole. The make rate is totally irrelevant to me on pretty much any putt outside of 8 feet.
Yeah, no, that checks with, at least anecdotally, my experiences of what I've observed. But it's interesting to hear you break that down. So I
Well, your
think,
anecdotal experience checks with the math
yeah,
more,
that's
more than the other way around.
and I think too. So I mean, it kind of sounds like it's not that line isn't important, but speed really is king when it comes to putting, right? Like, I mean, you just use an example, and again, it's just ego. Um, but recent game I had, really, really, really good player. Um, he burnt a couple edges that went 4 feet by. He missed one of those comeback, but all of them, ooh, Everdell group, great putt. And I lagged mine up. It was never going in. It was offline, a foot right, but they both stopped, 9 inches right of the cup. Nobody says a word. You just tap in for your boring par from 25 feet or whatever it is. But that is, to me, the misconception of something's happened to the world of golf where it's like, you just got to hammer it, take out as much break as possible. And I'm like, I've never understood it.
I've got to make this putt on the 18th hole to force a playoff. Shane Lowry, a month or so ago,
Mm.
had a 20-foot, 9-inch putt that he hit 6.5 feet past the hole. There's zero doubt in my mind he would never hit a putt that bad if it was
Mm-hmm.
on number 3 on Thursday. Like it was
Yeah.
there's no doubt he was thinking, I can't leave this one short. Well, he hits it 6+ feet long, misses it coming back, and instead of being tied for second, he falls back to third. So
Right.
it cost him about 800 grand. And that putt had no chance of going in either. I literally saw one on the European Tour this weekend while I was working out. A guy had an eagle putt on the last hole, and he jammed it 7 feet past the hole. And it's like, that had no chance of going in, dude. You have to be comfortable leaving putts short in order to optimize your make rates. I mean, this is the main argument that I've gotten into with Brad Faxon over the years. And it's bonkers to me how he just sticks his face in the ground in mountains of data where he said specifically, when I missed a putt, when I was putting my best, I always had to mark the comeback putt because it was going past the hole with enough speed. I had to mark it coming back. And I'm just like, there's just no chance that's accurate. And again, Brad Faxon himself left 16%. That's 1 in 6 putts short from 16 to 20 feet.
Right.
I find that incredible. I mean, again, probably it's certainly top 5 putter that's ever walked the planet.
Yeah.
This is why you have to be very careful listening to those who could do it. I mean, again, I'm fully acknowledging I played one U.S. Open. I had 36 putts each day. Brad can out-putt me.
Yeah.
But now understanding the data, he just doesn't even really understand what he did.
Right.
And, now the reason I do get in these arguments, as you've alluded to over the intro, I don't want the Scott Fawcett, the Will Zalatoris college kid hearing Brad Faxon say, I jammed my putts in, because it's just categorically not correct. I don't want them going down that rabbit hole and then just being confused why they're terrible at putting. I mean, and my dad told me whenever I was in high school, college, and playing professionally, my dad was always a great putter. And he always like, your speed control sucks. You need to work more on your speed. And what I would do then is just randomly roll balls all around the green, attempting to work on my speed. And what I've learned personally and, anecdotally and through working with, God knows how many tour players at this point doing this, doing a focused speed drill on as flat of a putt as you can find from 20 to 40, maybe 50 feet. So we're just purely working on speed control. I'm not working on, but importantly, I know how long the putt is. You'll start to get these reference points kind of in your stroke. This is roughly where a 30-foot putt is. It's just by far the way to practice. And I'll just put a bow on that one. You want to be practicing into like a 10% zone. So from 20 to 30 feet, you want to be rolling it into like a 2-foot zone. Maybe if you're not a great putter, maybe start with a 3-foot zone. And then from 30 to 40 foot, you're trying to roll it into like a 3-foot window. And then what's important is you'll get really good at that really quick. Like fixing your start line, that just takes years to fix your stroke. But focused concentration on your speed control, you can get your speed, I'm not going to say it's going to be great, but it can get a lot better really quick.
Fast.
And
Mm-hmm.
now if I'm able to roll it from 30 to 40 feet into a 3-foot zone fairly consistently, well, now I get out on the course. And as long as I'm comfortable, especially from 30 to 40 feet, I should be leaving exactly half my putt short. But now I've got, instead of a 3-foot window, I've got 3-foot short to 3-foot long. I've got a 6-foot window. Literally my target just doubled in size. And the amount of confidence you get from like, dude, I hit it into a 3-foot zone 75% of the time, whatever the number is.
Right.
Rolling it into a 6-foot zone just becomes comically easy. I mean, honestly. And that's what Tiger has told a number of players that I've worked with when they've asked him, like, why were you the best player ever? Both Maverick McNeely and Joseph Bramlett told me the same story that Tiger said to them. Why were you the best player ever? Because I was the best lag putter ever. And they were like, what does that mean? He's like, if I was in any kind of a weird spot or whatever, I could just always dump it to 20 to 40 feet. And if you always 2-putt from 20 to 40 feet, you're going to be pretty darn good because you've, A, not 3-putted, but B, you're recovering your disaster shots. You're not feeling like you've got to get it close. the issue with Zalatoris when he was younger and why Decade helped him so much was he's such a great ball striker and sketchy putter. He was trying to make birdies with his approach shots by stuffing it
Mm.
rather than thinking, I just want to hit this green. I want to have the shortest second putt physically possible. I want to eliminate as many silly bogeys as possible. I'm going to make some birdies accidentally. I'm going to birdie some par fives, but bogey reduction is the true goal here. I
Yeah.
mean,
So that's a perfect segue, because I was going to have a quote teed up for another quote from you. It's a lot easier to intentionally not make bogeys than it is to intentionally make birdies. So it's kind of a little bit what you're alluding to there too, right? Of bogey avoidance is more important than birdie make rate or birdie conversion. I know you have gotten into the math of why that is, that of how penal a bogey or a double bogey is versus a bogey, and vice versa. But I think that's a hard concept for a lot, especially better players too, because they're, yeah, I'm going to flag it. I'm going to stuff this one. I'm going to be aggressive here.
one of my favorite things, I've got a new COO named Alex Wong, who is a great follow on Instagram. It's just Alex Wong, HUANG golf. And he's posting some really cool stuff about this idea of fractional bogeys. So I've, like you said, from day one, I've always said it's easier to intentionally not make a bogey than it is to intentionally make a birdie. And I've always been about bogey avoidance, but he's taken it to another step of saying fractional bogeys. So, like, let's say you're playing in a tournament and you've got a hard par four and it's playing with, I mean, even at an elite level, like it's playing with a 4.3 scoring average. If you make a bogey, bogey and birdie are these arbitrary reference points to something that's kind of completely irrelevant. If there's any one thing the Scottish got right, it's like, what difference does par make? Because if you're playing St. Andrews, back-to-back days, the front nine could be straight downwind and the next day it could be straight downwind. The two nines, it goes straight out and straight back.
Mm-hmm.
Par is completely irrelevant because the holes could literally play with a full stroke difference scoring average on back-to-back days. And so really trying to get rid of this idea of, first of all, I just don't want you to think about score at all. That's the utopian, idealistic answer. But if we are going to think about score, we should do it in the correct way.
So
By
hard.
definition, a winning score of 288 in a four-round golf tournament is the lowest four-round average. We arbitrarily break that out into 4 18-hole rounds, which are 8 9-hole rounds, which are 9 1-hole rounds. Like we just make up these numbers, but what we're trying to do is beat the field average. So if a hole has a 4.3 scoring average, you make a 4, you have beat the field average by 0.3 shots. Even if the winning score is 20 under, making a par on that hole gets you closer to winning that golf tournament. On the PGA Tour, the average winner is 12 to 14 shots clear of the field average. So if I pick up 0.3 shots, that's now I only need to get 11.7 more shots to get to 12. It's, again, like you said earlier, it's a hard idea for people to wrap their head around. But where this becomes important is now let's say that 4.3 scoring average hole, and I know I go fast with this. I hope this is making some sense.
No, it's good. Like I said, we dedicated a whole episode to rolling out an equation to solve gimmies. So you're good, man. We go deep. We don't care.
Perfect. So if I make a 5 on a 4.3 average hole, I've lost 0.7 shots. But if I make a double, I've lost 1.7 shots. I mean, so literally double is effectively 2.5 times worse than making bogey. It's not just twice as bad. It's basically 2.5. Making birdie isn't 1 shot better. It's 1.3 shots better. I mean, and so again, par is just this random arbitrary number. And I do think that fractional bogey thing that Alex is talking about, Mark Brody's original book is the one that first said you have to start thinking in fractions of a shot rather than whole shots. And that's probably was one of the light bulb moments for me. Again, we had already started doing work in this online poker forum about strokes gained putting and the implications of it. But it was like reading that idea in the book, I was like, it's brilliant. I never would have thought of it that way. It's why he teaches at Columbia and I went to Texas A&M. But coming up with these ideas is just, it's a really, really, it's just a better way of thinking about scoring. If you're going to think about scoring at all. Again, I would prefer you just not even, the cut's going to be this. And you get a tour player and they're like, well, I've got to finish X. And it's like, well, I get it. Now, what's the process to do that? Because every shot matters. I mean, again, every shot matters is true. Like the top 10 in FedEx Cup standings at the end of the year gets a bonus of some sort from your sponsors. Top 30 is the Tour Championship. Top 50 is a set of invitationals. Top 70 is another set. Top 125, top 150. Like no matter where you're at on the money list, plus or minus 10 spots is either really good or really bad. And I'm a fan of thinking of the season long tournament, kind of like more like NASCAR. That we want to win the
Right.
season long tournament rather than any given
Yeah,
event.
and that's the hardest part, I think. The condition of the normal golfer is you're even getting away. So it makes complete sense. It's the difficulties of doing that under tournament pressure. But then, even like again, going back to the weekday, weekend warrior men and women, a lot of them are just like their weekly match, or it's a skins game or this, and it kind of like baits you into being which really, if you're trying to win that match and you're trying to win that skin, if you probably followed the program, you probably have a better chance. But in your head, you're living in a very moment by moment. I'm going to go after this one. I would maybe not hit this shot, but yeah, sure, I'll try to take on the force carry. So it's
100%. Like the real art of decade, you make the same amount of birdies for the most part playing super aggressive and firing at pins or playing with correct targets. Your
right.
scoring average drops by making fewer bogeys. But even in this random, wolf game or skins game or whatever, where
Yeah,
birdies are going to be rewarded, Stableford's a perfect example. You're gonna have, like, playing decade perfect golf. You're gonna have a slightly longer birdie putt on average. There's no doubt about that. But you're going to have more of them. And so your birdie rate doesn't change. I mean, literally, in my
yeah,
experience at all. It's the same thing as like your make rate doesn't change by leaving some putts short. In fact, it even goes up. I definitely believe that doing it properly, because you're going to birdie more par fives, doing it properly, your birdie rate should barely go up, but your bogey rate's going to plummet. And that's a pretty good thing in a wolf game because bogey
yeah.
might help you. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, for sure. And I want to talk to, and again, I'll try to not make this too much about me, but I'm pretty much on board with the program, but I'm a little confused when we get to driving the golf ball, because I know I've heard you say before you don't like the term, or at least how it's used, like conservative approach to golf, right? And I struggle because this is probably the weakest part of my personal game, and I play a lot of residential OB, which a lot of us do, type of golf courses. And I've really gotten to a pretty good groove this year where I'm dialing back. And I don't know how much, like, when you talk shot pattern in the world of driving the golf ball, I think everything that seems like approach and beyond the consequence doesn't see, at least mentally, seem to be that penal.
what do you mean by
Meaning, like in my head, I'm thinking through, oh, this is not a good, I'm just going to be honest. Like, oh, what's the worst thing that can happen? I got a 170-yard approach shot. My worst outcome's a bogey. Like, I'm going to, and so it's like a clarity, but off the tee, that it's just the consequence seems ramped up, that like, oh, I could be
that? It is.
introducing the big number. So it's like that decision point is like, what's the data say of, when should I be hitting this driver? When I not be hitting the driver? And then even into, it kind of goes into shot shaping. I got a quote from you. I've heard you say owning a shape, owning a trajectory, eliminating the double cross is by far the most important thing you can do. Being a great ball striker.
I want to
So
emphasize what you just said, though.
okay,
Eliminating the double cross is the most important thing you can do in golf in the full game. So
okay.
carry on with what you're saying, but you kind of glazed over that, and
Uh,
I think that's a really important
so,
point.
but why is that the most important thing?
Well, if the ball curves in the direction you intended it to, and you have a reasonable start line, you've got a huge margin for error. And this kind of gets back to this argument I'm in with Adam Young right now on social media. I'm not. There's people that think, well, if you play a straight ball, you've only got half the room to miss it, as opposed to if you're playing a curve. It's like, no, you still have 60 yards. I mean, that's just false. But if the ball doesn't curve the direction you intended it to, your
Hmm.
shot pattern becomes massive. Because so now if I'm trying to play a fade, let's just for ease say it's a pretty generic hole. Trees are 45 yards apart, fairways 35 yards wide. There's no OB. You should be starting that ball roughly up the left rough line and fading it back to the middle of the fairway if that's our ultimate target. But if I have a double cross in the bag, that ball starts left and goes left.
It's the
Like,
worst.
that's just always off the planet. Always, 100% of the time, double cross is the worst. And this is why, even when it's windy, and now let's go to an approach shot. Oh, it's blowing 15 off the left and I'm 160 and I'm going to hit just like a little punchy 7 iron or punchy 8 iron, whatever it is for you. A lot of people say, like, well, I want to hit a draw to hold it against that wind. Whereas I'm like, just get good at understanding how much that wind is going to move your fade, and still play it. Because, again, in my experience as a really good player, I mean, I'm a plus 4 or 5 typically when I'm playing much golf, I'm still going to double cross my shot roughly 20-ish% of the time. So now I've got this wind that's 15 off the left. And instead of playing my fade and allowing for it, I've started the ball further right, maybe just right at the flag, and I'm trying to hit a dead straight shot. But
Hmm.
my miss is a block cut with 15 off the left.
Yeah.
That's the worst possible outcome you can have. And so double crosses are just the absolute menace of the game. I played with Garrett Clark, the good guy, and I had him
Hmm.
out for my one-day member guest last year. And granted, it wasn't windy, so that made it a lot easier. And there weren't a whole lot of trees on this course, which makes it a whole lot easier to own one shape. But I just, for 18 straight holes, basically just flared every single shot around the course and shot 7 under. And in looking
Yeah.
at it, it was the easiest 65. And that's even, you can hear Garrett talking about, like, Scott's just like a sneaky. I was 6 under through 10. He's like, this is the sneakiest 6 under through 10 I've ever seen. And at the end of the day, it was the lowest round they'd ever, like, just straight up filmed. And
Hmm.
I was like, again, I'm not saying it wasn't that hard. By definition, it was a great round for me. But
Hmm.
when you watch it, it just looks so simple. And even though that was a good round, you could have thrown in a few more bad shots and a few more missed putts and whatever, and it still would have been a very simple 69.
Hmm.
And that's just by owning. I didn't hit a single shot that I just didn't double cross a single shot for the entire day, and that's
And you play, and I remember seeing that video, and I think he made a comment. He was like, "Are you gonna hit a draw at some? Are you gonna move it the other way at some point this day?" And you're like, "Nope, you're gonna see me hit this cut every single time." So
yeah.
yeah, I'm going through
I
pain.
think
So
I've drank my own Kool-Aid on it too much now because even like a few years ago, I could still draw my irons.
yeah,
At this point, actually, I've just been like, screw y'all, I'm going all in on this.
yeah.
I literally can't even draw my irons anymore.
So
It
so
is.
so that's a fair point for me. So is there situations where, because you've talked about shot shaping, owning that direction. I've seen the DJ video when you're saying, "Hey, he's number one player in the world, wins coming off." Like you were just the example you were just given, right?
Basically
And he's
saying there, DJ's lead. He's number one in the world. He's leading the U.S. Open at Shinnecock on Saturday. The pin is tucked way left on this hole over a bunker. The wind is literally 15 to 20 off the left, and you can tell from DJ's practice swing
yeah,
he's playing a fade here. And
yeah,
even I'm like, hey man, maybe a flighty draw here because like this
yeah.
one's pretty extreme. He's like, just ship it up there with, I think it was like a 6 iron, and
Mhm.
just send this giant cut out there.
So
Whatever.
so is shot shaping, so okay, this is my artsy fartsy part of me of like, so there is a beauty to the game, right? Watching the 86 Masters and all the different types of swings and the shot shaping, and I do have a closing segment about maybe athletes and technology, but is it just a is the data just showing to be optimized? This is how you should do it. Just be the not one trick pony, but you know what I mean. To own
Those
your shot, own your trajectory.
those
Um,
artsy shot shapers would get destroyed on the modern PGA Tour.
Is
I'm
it
not
because
I've
is it because
never
of the skill, or is it because of the technology allowing them to, or allowing you to play that way?
back then it should have been even more important back then because the ball was so spinny and the clubs were so hard to
You're
hit.
talking about, yeah, more important to shape it back then, right?
To shape it one way.
Oh, okay. So you're
Your misses
okay.
are penalized even more. I mean, that's where Bruce Litsky, he actually was a member at the club that I grew up at.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's, half the audience is like, who the hell is he? He's a dude that just had this giant sucked in swing and over the top and hit this just flary, spinny cut. And the dude won like, some guy told me the other day, we were talking about him, some guy told me he won 20 times. I can't believe I'm going to have to search that on another,
Okay.
because,
But
hold on.
so I mean, while you're doing live, we like it, live data pools.
He won
Um,
13 events.
13, that's solid.
13. The dude couldn't hit a draw. There was a joke that people, like, someone put a banana under the head cover of his driver at the end of an event. He wasn't playing for like 2 or 3 weeks because they wanted to see, like, he says he doesn't practice. I'm calling BS.
Hmm.
The dude got there, pulled it off. Banana is still under the head cover,
Oh my goodness.
and was very, very good on the PGA Tour. Obviously, 13 wins.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's just I am not gonna be the one. There's no belief, right? The data's the data. You don't need to believe in it. It just is what it is. So I understand how to be optimized. But as you know, a little old soul, the artistry of seeing that ball move both ways and getting after a pin, it might be sub optimized, but I do miss it a little bit.
And I
Um,
can appreciate that. There's definitely times when I have said to people, if that's your jam, I'd be careful listening to me too much. I mean, there is definitely, I will agree. decade proper course management, understanding shot patterns does remove a little bit of that mystique
Yeah.
allure of the game. But
Seeing the
there's a guy
shot.
named Humble Howard up in Canada whose podcast I've been on a few times, and he's like, I don't care. I stand for lower scores. Like, sure, hitting some artsy shots is fun. I like shooting as low as I possibly can on any given day. That's
So,
just
so I do want to, in that, back to driving. So I've really tried to, I know you mentioned the 45-yard dispersion of trees as your example. That's one thing I'm not, you can't diagnose myself. One thing was more of, I'm a little bit of a tinkerer on the driver, and I went to a lighter shaft and I introduced the double cross because I didn't like how floaty my cut was getting. And then I couldn't cut the ball for the last 4 months. So that's now been fixed with with an equipment change. Went back to the
that's good.
75X. But
But speak to
it,
that also real quick. The equipment, when someone like plays a draw and they're
mhm,
like, I want to practice, I want to switch to a fade. And
mhm,
then they do it for 2 or 3 weeks and they're like, you know what? I just don't like it. It's just kind of this spinny flare. I'm like, well, did you get a new driver?
yeah,
That driver is fit for a draw. Now
yeah,
you're going to go try to take it in, and or vice versa. Like they're playing a fade, and I want a little more distance, whatever that even means. I'm going to
yeah,
try to start drawing it. Well, did you? Because now you're going to hit low spin knuckleballs if your driver was fit correctly for a fade. That's the main reason you cannot work driver both ways. It's the only club in the bag that you just stand there and hit your stock shot on during a fitting. And now
yeah,
they optimize that launch angle and that spin rate for you. If you try to do anything other than that same swing, that driver is not going to work for
yeah,
that shot.
yeah. Yeah, and it's just one of those things, and again, maybe it's just again highlighting a weakness of my game. But just while I shelved the driver while the new shaft was coming in, I did fire my season low round 67 2 weeks ago without a driver in the bag at the club. So that's
You have 3 wood or mini driver under
and
it.
it's like a 4 wood. It's just it's a turn down 5 wood, but yeah, my club's 6,800 yards, so you can kind of get away with it. Couple holes, play pretty long for some par fours, but yeah, but it is funny that you just eliminate penalty strokes for me off the tee was a big deal, but usually it hadn't been a big problem for me, but the double cross killed me. Um,
You said something earlier that I kind of was going to start saying something about like the importance of driving versus approach shots. Like the approach shots, worst I'm going to do is make a bogey.
yeah,
I was talking with Chris Zambri yesterday, who's the head of the USGA's national team now, and we were talking about strokes gained approach and driving. And the difference in the two is that kind of the sum of the categories are roughly the same for, like the best strokes gained drivers around +1 and the best approaches around +1. But the driving is only 14 attempts ish.
right,
The approach is 20 or 22 because obviously every par three, every par four is going to have one, and most par fives are going to have,
yep, two,
at least two or three,
yeah,
excuse me, one or two. And
mhm,
so, yes, the categories sum to the same amount, but on a per shot basis, the driver can just hammer you. Whereas you're correct, the approach shots, if I've got a reasonable shot here, the worst I'm going to do is make bogey. But the Hogan quote I think is brilliant. If you can't putt, you can't score, but if you can't drive it, you can't play. And that's why the driver is just the most important club in the bag by a mile, in my opinion.
so even from like practice, you would still advocate. I mean, like, I guess I'm not like, would you advocate for uh, the amateur golfer, like really focusing on that as a priority? Then
Yeah,
is it just that committed shot shape? Like pick what it's going to be and just pick that window, pick that shape, and just be militant with it.
be militant, and most importantly, I talk about like my dad, also a good player, used to tell me you practice way too fast, but he never explained to me why. And the reason you want to get behind more shots is because the art of like moving into the shot and getting that ball position correct and your weight shift, like to trigger your swing, that's stuff you have to practice and ingrain. Like Tiger's pre-shot, anyone on tour, but Tiger specifically, his pre-shot routine was so just perfect and spot on every single time. But the reason, so like with your irons, man, nobody's going to get behind every shot. So that's really just bad advice because if you know someone's not going to do it, that's bad advice. You should get behind more probably than you are, or at least
Mhm.
kind of understand we need to be looking at the target. But with the driver specifically, I think you should get behind every single one of them when you're practicing. Like, hey, if you're just warming up for a round and just firing 10 drivers because you're in a hurry, whatever. But if you're there, like, I'm here to improve, you want to be getting behind every single one of them because you want to be very good at walking in, being oriented to your target the way you intend to, but the ball position with your driver has to just be spot on, exactly where you intended it to be every single time. Because once you start shifting ball position around, it's going to change your path, and it's ever so slightly, but it's going to make you have more mishits. It's going to make everything less consistent. And I did a video with Frankie from Barstool,
Hmm.
one of the Fixing Frankie videos, which is a great, easy find. Fixing Frankie, Scott Fawcett, you'll find that on YouTube. But when I was watching him with the driver, like it was anywhere within like a 9-inch circle from hole to hole. Like, and he'd be like, he would hit it and be like, one would fade and one would draw, and he'd be like, "What happened there?" And I'm like, that could have been the identical swing. I highly doubt it was, but it could have been theoretically with just a different ball position that created those two different shapes. And yet we all start analyzing our swing. Maybe there's a better chance it was just bad ball position, bad setup, bad alignment. I can't believe how many amateurs I'll watch and they'll walk into the shot and they never even look down to the target at all. They're in there and they're just thinking about their swing and thinking. I mean, literally, they just kind of walk in, thinking about my swing, and then they just hit it that way, and
Yeah.
it goes right. And they're like, "What did I do?" I'm like,
Were you
"Dude,
like,
you were aimed right of the flag there,
yeah. And
right
yeah, that's
of the
yeah.
green wrap."
Yeah, it's probably it's an endless rabbit hole of those kind of pre-shot issues with the amateur. So I know we're running up on our time here, and I kind of alluded to, we talked about. I know you've mentioned athletes in the game and how much the sport has changed. I don't know if I have a question more so than I was going to get into technology's impact versus just the raw athlete and skill
It's both.
increase.
There's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt it's both.
Hmm.
But DJ, yeah, I said this back, I mean, literally in like 2000, 2002. I was like, if Tiger doesn't break Jack's record, it's going to be his fault because of bringing in, real athletes to the game. I get mad when people say golf's not a sport. When I was in high school in the 90s, golf was not a sport. The smaller, nerdier Tom
Hmm.
Kites of the world
Yeah.
played golf. I was an anomaly. I
Very
mean, I'm
talented.
6'1", 220. Like I'm a big dude.
Mhm.
Uh, I was definitely an anomaly back then. But like when I go out on the range on the PGA Tour now, I am not big. I mean, I'm about average.
Mhm.
And you get guys like DJ and Brooks, like those are Brooks should have been a pitcher in the major leagues, and DJ probably, unfortunately, would have been like in this area of like, man, I'm not big enough for that sport. I'm not thick enough for that sport, but I'm
Yeah.
just a really good athlete, like a decathlete or something. I mean,
Yeah.
those guys are just studs, and those dudes did not exist on the PGA Tour 30
Yeah.
years ago. So it is a different athlete that plays the game now. I mean, just period, and that's fine. I mean, luckily, golf, we can just move the tees back or do certain things, and the game's still the same. I look at the NBA, and it's like, at what point do you need to make the rim higher?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's,
at what point is this game not the same game that it's supposed to be? And I would obviously assume now, but how do you just be like, guys, we're going to go up a foot now? That'll
yeah.
never happen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, NBA, I could do another pod on that because they have, every change they would wanna make would actually have probably worse unintended consequences too. So, yeah, there yeah, I don't know. That's hey, like, look, as again, I mentioned, I'm a data appreciator, but, optimization, as good as it is, guys, but whether it's the athlete being optimized or the skill or the understanding of solving the sport, we'll see how that plays for professional sports,
Well,
down
but
the road.
people get mad about the idea of like analytics is ruining the game. I'm like, I mean, I don't know why you think that. I mean, I understand it ish, but in basketball, I think it's comical. If you look at like a shot pattern chart of basketball, it's behind the 3-point line and in the paint. And
Yeah,
if you shoot it anywhere else, I don't know,
it's not
these
good
Angel
enough.
Reese highlights that are on Instagram now crack me up from the one guy's like, Angel Reese from way downtown, bang.
Yeah.
But he's got this one video where it's Angel Reese long twos where she does like a head fake from behind the 3-point line and steps in 1 foot in front of the 3-point line
Right.
and shoots it. It's like,
Yeah. That's the
can't
worst.
find a worse shot on the court to
Yep.
possibly take there.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm trying. Basketball is my first love, so I'm trying not to take the unintentional bait of spending the next hour of diving specifically into that. But with maybe for part two, maybe we'll do a special basketball deep dive
I
segment.
did an hour and a half long webinar with Seth Curry yesterday, getting ready for the Celebrity Classic this weekend. His,
Oh,
his brother won last year, so he's like, I got to get
oh,
him.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's yeah, I always actually like tuning into that event. It looks fun. It was good last year's stuff. That was awesome to see. So
Yeah.
I know that's huge for the event too. I'm going to close with this. We always like talking about the future. You kind of said something earlier that I was wondering if we were going to get into it. So what's the future for decade golf course management from not just from it could be a business side, but also any technological improvements or things that you'd like to see integrated?
I think it's a solved problem at this point. I really do.
Hmm.
I don't know that more data, I mean, because now ShotLink is tracking the actual ball flight and
Mhm.
a lot more stuff, but what I created with Decade definitely solves the problem about as well as it can be solved. There's a kid named William Knaut that graduated top of his class from Carnegie Mellon. He's now in a PhD stats program at Columbia. Kid's smart. And he and I have been friends for nearly 8 years, probably at this point, and had a lot of conversations. And he's told me that he's written programs in the lab at Columbia trying to do a better job than Decade. He's like, man, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty spot on. Like, maybe you could make a tweak here or there, like the water modifier, instead of being 3 at 200 yards, it's 5, which just means you're adding a few more yards. But he's like, for a simple system, you're just not going to get much more accurate. I mean, honestly, having an endorsement like that from, I mean, literally, quite literally, the smartest person I've ever met in my life by a mile. So I just don't know that changes much. You're going to definitely see a lot of people try to act like they're doing something different. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys out on the PGA Tour that are doing great work right now, but it's all derived off of Decade at the end of the day. And people ask me, why don't you go out there? I'm like, I've got a 12 and 15-year-old girl. I don't want to go out on the tour 25 weeks a year. I'm good.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Decade changes much. I think the thing that'll be cool to see is how much AI, like, so Decade as a business, it's unbelievable right now. It won't, obviously, let's make an extreme example. It will not be the same thing in 20 years. So where's the inflection point between today and 20 years from now where some sort of AI really takes over? But the challenge is always going to be with golf. In order for AI to work, you have to have the whole location in the exact spot that it is. You have to have the wind doing exactly what it is. You have to have the course conditions exactly what they are. And so what I've just always said is I'm a proponent of, I'm going to teach a man to fish rather than giving him a fish. And so I'm going to teach you, here's what you need to be learning and looking for. And at best, AI will perfectly replicate it in the future. But as long as you know what you're doing, you're not going to make a better decision by more than a yard by having some massive AI tool. So I'm curious, because I'm like, man, I kind of hope this thing stays alive for another 10 or 15 years. I'll be done. But
Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance that's the way it works. Man, when you go to the PGA show every year, there's so much cool stuff where I'm like, you have overthought this to death. It's not that important or complicated. And I'm literally saying, like, course management, it is very important, but it is not that complicated to be having all these AI tools. I mean, there's some really, really impressive brains in the golf space now doing stuff. I'm like, again, I as a professional golfer at heart, a good player at heart, I kind of know what is and isn't really usable. And I see so much stuff where I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like Arcos. It's cool. It's not accurate. It's not usable. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just not accurate, period.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, when people say, I love using it, I'm like, tell me how you like it in about 4 months. It's like a shiny new tool that, oh, okay, never mind. This doesn't really do what I thought it did.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Not
Well,
cool on Arcos, but sorry.
I know. I was just taking a note, make sure we don't ever reach
If I
out to
see your sponsor
Arcos for any
logo in the back.
sponsorships. No, it's no, I get it. That's what hey, and that's a good way to segue into hey, we try to have like deliberate, transparent conversations with some of the most interesting people in golf. You certainly check all those boxes. Unfortunately, you might be talking to an AI version of me in 10 or 20 years, but for now, Scott, we really appreciate the time. We know the lettuce heads do. I know you're into the lettuce now. We'll make sure the merch line's coming up soon, so we'll make sure we get you a hat. Yeah, really
It's funny,
appreciate it.
actually, when you say AI, there is actually one thing that we are trying to build in the app,
Okay.
and it's so, like, you would put it into practice mode, and when you would come up, it would be my voice actually saying, "All right, looks like you're about 160 to the green. Where's the pin? If it's on the left, it looks like we've got a lake over there, potentially a bunker." I would be walking them through the steps. I wouldn't be telling them, "Here's the answer.
Yeah.
Here's what you need to be looking for."
Kind of like a
and how you
virtual
apply it
coach,
in real
AI
time.
coach with your voice. Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty cool. Like I don't have a clue if it's going to actually work or not. I got a
Yeah.
programmer that's pulling his hair out, and screaming
Hey,
at
we
me.
don't know if it's going to be Arcos or Decade. We'll figure it out soon, though. But yeah, Scott. No, again, man, really appreciate it. Hopefully, we get to do it again down the road one day. And let us heads. We're going to see you next week. And most importantly, stay plugged. Peace. See you, Scott. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.